you can't out Google, but there is a strength in being an underdog.
They created a product so good that customers, the people, have become the marketers.
It seems like a missed opportunity.
And of course, Netflix might film a couple of documentary series about them.
And then here you have it. It's your competitive advantage.
Take it. As we make it.
Welcome to Startup Slts, where we keep it real. No sugar-coated stories, just the raw deal.
Hello everyone, welcome back to 2025 with Startup Slts, your favorite podcast where two battle-scarred founders and very good friends uncover the real stories behind entrepreneurship. We are back, just like we promised, with a very interesting story of a German unicorn. And you might be wondering, why should you listen to us? So let me tell you. First of all, we are co-founders of an AI mental health startup, and we also have year-long experience in research from Germany's top universities. So actually, who else if not us? My name is Mary.
My name is Ksenia, and today we are dissecting the rise of DeepL, a company that started as a translation tool and nowadays it is one of the biggest European startups. Moreover, it is biggest German unicorn worth around $2 billion. And we believe that it is flying under the radar. That is why we are here to expose how they did it.
And it's a very interesting story how DeepL started inside another company, Linge, and we believe they even redefined translation with AI.
I absolutely agree with you, and they keep growing. They developing new features like DeepL writing, and they have secured $300 million of investment the last year.
So, by the end of this episode, you will have the list of key lessons from DeepL's success, along with powerful, actionable questions that we challenge you to apply to your own business. So, how are we going to structure this episode? After starting with a brief introduction of DeepL, we will dive deep into 5 sections, each highlighting a key lesson, a catchphrase that we came up with, and a question for you to consider. So grab your pen and paper or digital notebooks and take notes because you won't hear this anywhere else.
Let's get into it. You know what is really interesting about DeepL is that they have become popular because translators have started to use this translation tool. But actually, we have found out that journalists were the very first who used DeepL and they made it popular in professional circles.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And it's also kind of surprising for me that it's a huge company. We're talking about a German company that is worth 2 billion US dollars. And like, why is not everyone in Germany talking about it?
I'm absolutely agree and shocked in some way because a lot of people are talking, for example, about Mistral. It is French company, and no one is talking about DeepL. I believe honestly, if something similar has happened in the US, founders giving interviews here and there the whole time. They doing podcasts, and of course Netflix might film a couple of documentary series about them. And yes, for sure, it will be the cult of founders.
Yeah, and we have like real life examples of that a lot from US. And it makes you wonder, is it like a German thing? Is it about staying modest or focusing on the product? Because for me, as a marketing and communications manager, it seems like a missed opportunity. But maybe that's like the strategy all along. led the product to the calculation.
Yeah, it could be. It could be because everything what we have found in internet all already exists in interviews. They are pretty modest, and I don't want to use the word boring, but they sounds like PR text.
Yeah, dry.
Very dry. All right, before we jump into deeper parts of DeepL's story, let's quickly break down what actually DeepL does for everyone who is not familiar with this company. DeepL is an AI-powered translation tool, and while it might sound similar to Google Translate, it's known for delivering much higher quality translations. The company launched in 2017, but its story started much earlier. It all goes back to 2009 when Jirion Fröhling, a former Google engineer, founded Lingy. Lingy is a multilingual dictionary combined with a search engine, and since then it was a super innovative tool that focused on providing contextual translations by pulling real world examples from across the web. And how it actually works. It helps users find translation of words and phrases by showing, as I mentioned, real world examples from reliable sources. Unlike regular dictionaries, Lingui provides context by displaying how words are used in actual texts.
And that's actually the secret sauce of DeepL. Years of curating and analyzing bilingual data from Linge gave the team the foundation where they built their neural network models on. And by 2016, under the leadership of Yaroslav Kutilovsky, and Jarek, I'm very sorry if I'm butchering your name. As a Georgian in Germany, I know how it feels. So, under Jarek's leadership, they started working on what we know now as DeepL Translator. And in a year, they launched with 7 languages. And as Ksenia already mentioned, the journalists across Europe immediately noticed how much better the quality of translation was, because it did not feel like a robot anymore. It felt like it was written by a human. And it made sense that other professionals from different fields started using it.
Yes, and it's really impressive because since then they keep growing. They started, as Mary mentioned, with 7 languages. Nowadays they support 33 languages. Obviously, they have a lot of customers. And what is more impressive that they have such a big customers like Deutsche Bank and SAP, and of course, once again they secured 300 million dollars investment and worth nowadays around 2 billion.
Yeah, that's really not a bad for a translation tool. And the fact that it's a German company actually plays into its success because Germany is known for its strict data privacy laws, and DeepL was particularly appealing for businesses who cared about it. And for example, their DeepL Pro subscription, they promise that the data is not saved and it's not monetized. Yeah, and before we start analyzing and dissecting DeepL, we want to make a disclaimer. Everything we are saying in this episode is based on our own opinion, which comes from the research we've done and the experiences we've gathered as founders ourselves.
Yes, we don't have any insider information, so make it as we make it. Okay, let's start with our first big takeaway from DeepL success. And we have called this lesson like obsess over the hard to see detail. And honest, we truly believe that it's something what makes DeepL stand out. Just think about it. They have started their journey at 2017 when Google Translator was already on the market, and it feels like they were the main competitor to DeepL. Nevertheless, DeepL was very obsessed to create the model which delivered very or which concentrated a lot on minor details like grammar or syntaxes or even the tone of the text they translate. And it is something what customers unconsciously feel when they use AI translation tools.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we already mentioned it feels more human than a robot. And it's not just translating word for word, it's paying attention to the context. And it makes everything sounds more natural. Like it's logical that people with high stake jobs started trusting DeepL more because, like, imagine you are a lawyer and you need to craft a contract. You won't trust a sloppy AI with its sloppy translation, would you?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. That is why it brings us to our very first catchphrase, which sounds the next: sweat the small stuff because your customers do. And the actionable question you need to ask yourself sounds also the next way: what seemingly minor detail can you perfect to blow your users away?
Yeah, and really take your time and think about it. Like, what is one thing, something your customers might not even know that they care about, but if you nail it, it changes everything. And then here you have it. It's your competitive advantage.
Okay, let's dive into the second lesson we can learn from DeepL's success story, and we have called this lesson Be a Strategic Underdog. This is one is such a gem because DeepL they haven't created another Google Translator. Played smarter, we believe. They become specialists just in one thing. They have created a very high quality translation tool.
Yeah, and this strategy actually goes way back to their roots. As we said, the company DeepL is based on Linge, and Linge is not just a typical translation tool. Linge was already a successful company. It was generating revenue, so they did not have to run to investors and VCs for that.
To ask the money. It's truly amazing story, and it's truly, I think, a dream that you don't need to invest your time into the relationships, building relationships with investors, looking for them. Instead, you can use the money you have earned already and reinvest it in your new company, in your new product. It means that you have more time and more freedom to concentrate on your product and on your vision, how it should look like. And yes, it's like a great example and the way I think every founder want to create a product.
Yeah, and it's a also a pretty privileged situation to be able to bootstrap your one company based on the other. And it's also like, let's face it, I don't think that they were even trying to outscale Google. Like, you can't out Google, but there is a strength in being an underdog, and you don't have to be the biggest player in the game, but you can outthink them. So here we come to our second catchphrase: you can't out Google, but you can outsmart.
Yes, and the actionable question you need to ask yourself is: what is the one thing you can do better than your industry giants? Because once you find out what makes you unique, it means you have found your niche. If you have found your niche, trust me, customers will find you by themselves.
Yeah, and that's gonna be your superpower.
The lesson number three is such a powerful one, and we've named it Let the Product Do the Marketing. That is where DeepL really stands out. They didn't rely on flashy marketing campaigns or PR campaigns. Instead, they created a product so good that customers, the people, have become their marketers.
Yeah, then they really leaned into it. And like, Xenia, do you remember how you heard about people?
Yes, actually, I remember because I was use Google Translator to translate something, and my friend was like, why don't you use DeepL? It's like much better." And I was like, "Okay, I will try." And yes, it felt much better for sure.
Yeah, I think I had exactly the same experience, like a little ironically asking me, like, how, like, you don't hear about the best tools on the market. And yeah, I can say it was one of the best decisions to start using DeepL. And that's actually how they grew organically. But what is interesting that they announced that they are planning to invest more money in marketing from especially their last fundraising round, and they want to expand in other markets like US, and we'll come back to that point later on in the episode.
Yes, but what been said already leads us perfectly to our catchphrase for this lesson, and it sounds like make it so good they can't keep quiet. And the actionable question you need to ask yourself sounds the next. What about your product will make users evangelize it? Because let's be honest, if your users, your customers, are your marketers, it really means you are creating an extraordinary and very cool product. The next lesson, the lesson number 4, we have named Build Loyalty by Solving for Trust. The deal is that trust in business actually plays a very important role. And very often businesses or young startups, they start first with new features, with investments. For sure, everything is very important, but trust is something what is very often overseen. We don't know exactly if it was conscious or unconscious strategy of DeepL, but they may trust their strategy. And of course, a very important role here plays the privacy rules, because we know that in AI products, it is very important where you store the data of your users, what data do you use to train your models, and so on and so on. And of course, they use this trust and these privacy rules to their advantage.
Yeah, and actually, as we already mentioned, being a German company is also something that gave them an edge. Because I think majority of our listeners already know, but Germany has some of the strictest data privacy laws in the world. Let's like imagine it's GDPR compliance on steroids, and we know that firsthand because we are creating AI in mental health. So we're dealing with some very sensitive data. And that was something for us from day one, the most important. And if you come back to DeepL, like companies, as you mentioned, Deutsche Bank, very sensitive information. And they were looking for a translation service and they could not allow themselves to take any of the market.
Especially American company, for sure, it was not a solution for them.
Yeah, because some of them might have very questionable data privacy standards, and for them I can say that DeepL was not like, oh, it's a good option. It might have even been the only option on the market, and that's what we can really learn from DeepL, that you can turn regulations into the opportunities and build your brand on this trust from the start. And that's something you can't buy from ad campaigns or PR. So it's a really important takeaway from this lesson. Trust is not just earned, it's engineered. And it's not something you hope that will happen, it's something you design into your business model.
And here is an actionable question you need to ask yourself. What are you doing to make your customers feel safe and valued? Okay, and the last lesson for today is dare to go deep instead of wide. You know how it happens with a lot of startups. At the moment they get enough traction, first investments, they start to implement new and new features. And for a long time, DeepL didn't implement any new features, but they made better and better their already existing model and their translation tool.
Yeah, and this focus really paid off, but it's also important to understand that this like focus go deep, not wide strategy. It works at the beginning, but DeepL now is expanding, and they recently announced that they are adding also voice and audio translation, which in our opinion is a very logical move, considering that OpenAI and Google are also like fast on the market.
The translation of Google has become much better. OpenAI translation is also
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, and for example, Microsoft is not only investing in OpenAI, but also developing their own tool. So like it's clear, especially if you look at the market, there is this race between US and China, who is first on the AI. Sadly, Europe is pretty behind for now. We hope it's
Yes.
gonna change. So it's logical that you need to adapt to the market too. And I think it's very clear for the DeepL founders themselves also, because there's an interview where he's talking about how these innovations and developments in the market made them realize that they need to adapt to it faster to stay to have this advantage to stay competitive.
Yes, and they want to invest the money they get into marketing, especially on the American market, as I understood, because it's our huge speculation. But if we imagine that, for example, those American company as Oracle would love to operate on EU market, it's clear that, as we mentioned earlier, the GDPR privacy rules are very strict, so they need someone who has already a solid background here and can provide them this high quality translation at the same time based on all GDPR rules and so on and so on. But it's our huge speculation, but it explains why they do want to make marketing and to invest into this branch of the business development.
Yeah, and it really perfectly leads us to the last lesson. So it sounds following. It's better to be a leader in one field than a follower in many. And the catchphrase we came up with sounds like specialist win, where generalist might fail. And I would want to give you also our last question for you, fellow founders. Where can you focus your energy to dominate your niche? Because before you expand, you need to own something first.
Dear listeners and viewers, let's make a small summarization of what we have learned today based on DeepL's success. Because obviously its success story is very unique and very interesting. That company that started as a dictionary tool has become biggest Germany unicorn and one of the biggest European company. And ever since this has happened, while they were not very loud, but they were very modest, and from our opinion, they concentrated very much on their product and they make it being their marketing tool itself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes down to the founders and people behind the company itself, like Jirion and Yaroslav, and their personalities and their approach to building a business. So, yeah, a very crucial part of becoming a successful company. And now we want to do a final recap of the 5 big lessons we all can learn from DeepL's story. First, obsess over the detail. Sweat the small stuff because your customer do. Be a strategic underdog. You can't out Google, but you can outsmart them. Let the product do the marketing. Make it so good they can't keep quiet. Build the loyalty by solving the trust. Trust is not just earned, it's engineered. And the last one, dare to go deep instead of wide. Specialists win, where generalists might fail.
So, whether you are building a company or a project, it's always great to learn from already existing successful companies. We encourage you to think about it. What of these lessons we have presented to you based on DeepL's success you can apply to your story, to your company right now. And we would be happy if you will subscribe our channel, if you will leave the comment or thumbs ups, because it will help us to improve our content, to create new content. Till then, keep building, keep learning, and remember, focus beats everything.
See you soon, your Startup Sluts.